Maureen Fawley, half a century of research. In September 1971, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, USA. With great vigor and enthusiasm. With primitive guns in their hands, teenagers Kevin Cobbs and Danny Linevere were on the way for a hunting tour inside the woods. When I came across them in the narrow valley near a landfill off a road called Eli, parked car. Topped by a girl lying without shoes, seemed to them asleep. The two of them didn't care about her and continued on the road. But in the evening, and while returning her millennia in the same place and on the same body, he was skeptical of her order, and slowly advanced to examine her. They noticed her rigidity, coldness and the color of her bluish skin, so they unleashed their legs to Danny's house and brought his mother to see her. And here was the surprise: the woman was dead, so the police were called. It later became clear that she belonged to 17-year-old Maureen Fawley. Maureen and Rebecca Fawley was born on Sunday, July 4, 1954 in Sioux City, Iowa, USA. She is the eldest sister of 7 siblings born to David and Mary and Rebecca, 2 girls and 4 boys. Maureen was loved by all her brothers for her optimism and constant laughter on her gaps. Despite her young age, they had a sitter and a second mother when her parents were repeatedly absent from home. This is what made them all cling to her, and bitterly crying on her wedding day to David Fawley at the age of 15. 2 years later, specifically at the age of 17, her husband was subjected to a few judicial problems that made him a prisoner of the Anamosa Correctional Facility, at least 4 hours away from the city of Sioux. Maureen followed in her husband's footsteps and decided to leave for the nearest place to visit him constantly. The destination was the city of Cedar Rapids. Once she arrived, she rented a room as a shelter and got a job as a waitress in a restaurant. She was swept away by nostalgia for her family, communicating with them with few letters and phone calls despite their high cost. Everything was going at a normal pace with Maureen. Until Monday, September 20th. The workers of the restaurant where she works noticed that she did not attend, and that was not her habit. Her last appearance was on Friday, a day before the weekend, where she borrowed some money from the restaurant to buy a pack of cigarettes and later returned to receive her salary. But she did not. The owner of the restaurant reported her loss, so the police responded to the report as usual. The first place to search was her room, where they found the room of the partial cigarette pack. At the back of the dwelling, they found her car with a full fuel tank. But the girl had no trace anywhere, until 4 days had elapsed and the 2 young men found her body. After securing the crime scene, Maureen's body was taken to the hospital for autopsy. The examination revealed a large skull fracture, the cause of death, and confirmed that she had been raped. As for the blood test, it was proven that she was not under the influence of any alcohol or drugs. She had been dead 3 to 4 days from the time the body was found. Maureen Fawley was fully dressed at the time of her discovery, despite the chaos that engulfed her. Except for her shoes, which were missing, and the examination proved that her feet were clean, which means that she was wearing them at the time of her death. Nor did Maureen's body bear any defensive wounds or signs of struggle. So it was not likely that she had seen her attacker coming, but was taken by surprise. The deputy chief of police in Cedar Rapids said there were a lot of items missing from the girl's bedroom. The first is her handbag, which investigations revealed that she never went anywhere without her. The bag, according to her husband's testimony, contained a forged driver's license to prove that she was over 21 years old. Makeup kits, rental receipts, family photos and a notebook. Also on a leather wallet with red velvet lining. Several pairs of shoes were also missing, and it is not known to this day what shoes Maureen was wearing on the day she was killed. All investigations led to a void. On September 27, the police issued a public appeal for any information regarding the victim, Maureen Fawley, but there was no response. Over the years, many suspects were interrogated and put on lie detectors, but to no avail, which made them keep the only DNA sample found as a result of the sexual assault on Maureen's body. The case is classified under cold crimes. Perfectly half a century is how long it took generations of police in Sioux, Iowa, to find the killer. In 2006, investigators presented the preserved DNA sample for processing. They created a profile and uploaded it to the FBI's Common DNA Index system, however they found no matches. 10 years later, investigators began collecting DNA from all but one of the suspects, who died in 2013. So they took permission from the authorities to examine his daughter's DNA to match it, and here was the surprise. On September 24, 50 years after the body of Maureen Fawley was found, her killer was found, and who was none other than the so-called George Smith, who died at the age of 94. At the time of the crime, Smith was 50 years old. He worked in a liquor store near Maureen Fawley's apartment and ran some transportation, making trips to the landfill where Maureen's body was discovered. It was said that he got to know the girl through his visits to the restaurant in which she works, and they grew up acquaintance and conversation. In fact, the police did not overlook George, but considered him one of the main suspects. But due to the lack of sufficient evidence and his complete refusal to take a lie detector test, he was not arrested. But it is baffling that they did not intensify the research and investigation behind him, at least because of his attention-grabbing behavior. As the reports confirm that Smith was constantly visiting them at the beginning of the investigations to ask them if he found something in the case. The mystery of Maureen Fawley's murder was finally solved, although the details and facts of the crime were not discovered. She was buried forever with her perpetrator, who took death before receiving his just punishment, but the case was officially closed.